Your van home is small, and you're going to build up, you breathe, and inevitably there is moisture that's going to come out of your body, whether you're sleeping or awake, and it's going to build up. If you have wooden walls, if you have cloth, you're going to want to do some prevention of mold buildup. And one of the ways to do that, and you'll want to do different methods, and one of those methods is to seal your wood. This is birch plywood, and what I have chosen to go with is a non-toxic sealer called Vermont Natural Coatings. It's clear because I really, really like the look of just the grain on the wood and the natural color. You may recall that there was a tragedy related to off-gassing that happened for Hurricane Katrina evacuees who were gifted RVs. However, the RVs were filled with materials that off-gassed formaldehyde and probably other chemicals as well. Tragically, some people passed away from this. Other people became chronically ill. This is obviously not what you want to happen in your home on wheels. So this is an important safety tip: to seal your wood, to use fabrics that are mold resistant, to choose materials that may not have fire retardant in them, may not have formaldehyde in them. This is formaldehyde-free plywood. The walls are filled with the sheep's wool. There isn't, so far in this van build, there isn't anything that's going to be off-gassing, anything toxic. Dave is going to share with you some tips for applying the Vermont Natural Coatings sealer onto the wood in a small space with the fiber insulation behind it. There are some tips that you may not have thought of. So David is going to share his pro tips with you.
So, also with the moisture buildup in the van, another key component can be ventilation. So, hence the Max Air fan. This is the Vermont Naturals coating. And this is actually furniture finish rather than floor grade polyurethane stuff, because this is also going to be used on the countertop and seats and whatever are around the van. So you could use food grade oils and stuff, but I don't know that I'd recommend that with a plywood.
Right. More like a butcher block, you would use the mineral oil.
Yep.
Right.
So I do prep was just anywhere it's going to be coming in contact with wheel wells or the floor mats or something. It's just put the painter's tape right up against it. You can have it go up the wall just a little bit if you know there's a gap up there behind it, and then just tuck it down into it. You get a nice tight seal. So anywhere you're going to be coming in contact with something you don't want it on, you put that on there. And this is the applicator I like to use for most of it. I just use this and a disposable brush. These are very inexpensive, and the brushes are as well, so you don't have to clean those out every time you do that and take a half an hour or an hour of your time cleaning up stuff. I'll use disposable tray liner and these things. And this will leave brush stroke like look to it instead of roller marks, where if you just rolled on the urethane, you can roll it on and brush it out, or I find this applies it just as quickly. We put it on, go around the edges. This can get right up to the edges because the hairs go right up to the side of that. The foam holds enough urethane, water-based urethane, so you can go right out, and then once you do around the edges, brush it out, bring it out with this, and you get a nice smooth uniform finish with it. Just watch out for any runs, especially if you are going over things like these screw heads. You go over that, you'll have a buildup there that you're going to have to wipe off underneath so you don't get runs. And that's pretty much it. These things are great for corners, So you can get right down into all the corners with these little applicators because they have that nice geometric shape there. And you can go follow right along all the curves with it. Get right up to both sides. No need for cutting in with brushes on things like that. Just in the really small, hard to get spaces is where you're going to use that brush. That's about it.
And what about the cover, the heads of the screws? If you get that on there, will it make them shiny?
It does make them shinier, and I do like that it's on there because the raw screw heads will be more likely to rust if they don't have anything on them.
Oh, so it's not only a mold prevention, it's a rust preventive for the screw heads.
It will help with that, yeah. And unless you're doing, 4 or 5 coats, you're not going to get too much in there that you can't still put a screwdriver in there and take it out if needed.
True. So how much of the sealant is needed for a van this size?
That depends on how much you're putting in with it. So I think it's going to take more than 2 quarts, but not a full gallon. But it would be more cost effective to get the gallon than to get 3 quarts of it. And then we're sure to have enough. But because of the large bed setup in here and all the framing that's going to entail, and the countertops and shelving and stuff over here, there's going to be more to use that on. So I went with the gallon.
And will this also be on the bed platform?
Yep. It'll be on all the wooden surfaces.
Both sides?
Yep. On the bed platform, it'll be on both sides of it and the framing for it.
Okay. Is there an odor when you're applying it?
There is a very small odor. I've applied the traditional oil-based urethanes and this stuff. And when you're doing the oil-based urethane, even in a house, if you're doing a whole floor of it, you want to leave the house because it's just overpowering. Whereas with this stuff, it's a little less odor than painting a wall.
Then with low VOC paint?
Right. It's almost not noticeable. I had put a coat on this morning before you arrived, and you're not noticing.
Right. That's true. Will it damage your clothing?
If you wash it out right away with hot soapy water, you can get it off. But I would still wear painter's clothing when working with it, just so you don't have to be running back and forth to the sink to wash up.
And do you have to wear a mask or goggles or anything like that?
No, you don't have to.
In this case, we went with a clear finish, and you can have other finishes as well. Now, Dave has worked with wood a lot. How would you describe the difference that other finishes make?
Well, you can do other finishes. You could do a stained wood, but then if you're staining wood, you're making it darker than it already is. And in a small space, you're going to want to leave it fairly light for the reflectivity. And also, this is a semi-gloss, not a gloss, because you could do a gloss. It's all up to your personal preference, but that makes everything very shiny. So if that's what you're into, you can do that. This is just halfway there, so you get nice light reflectivity without being like you're in some sort of museum or something.
Right. Because in a small space, I think the high glare could be a bit intense. Yeah. But this soft gloss, semi-gloss, gives some light reflectivity that could make the space feel a little bit bigger.
And makes it easily wipeable.
Oh.
Yeah. And obviously, any of this stuff could be painted as well. You prime your wood, you paint it, and you could do that, and you can pick any color you want, lighter or darker. I would still suggest lighter. Okay, so if you were going to paint over this water-based urethane surface, I would recommend that you sand it with at least 120 grit. You could go a little rougher if you needed to give it some ridges for the paint to adhere to. So that way it doesn't scrape off. Other than that, you should be good.
All right, so you're adding texture to it.
Yep, adding texture back to it, so that way the paint has more surface to adhere to.